So, you shouldn't take a gap year. Before I made this video, I made certain assumptions about you, why you'd be interested in this video. People take gap year for a myriad of reasons. Some just wanted a break, others took it for financial reasons, and some people took it for the same reason as me, which is wanting to reapply to universities. So maybe they didn't get it in the first year, so they took a gap year and reapplied again. So let me introduce myself briefly. I took a gap year because I didn't get into Oxford, so I decided to take a gap year after graduating from college and reapply again. And this time I applied to Cambridge. Didn't get it as well, but finally settled on UCL as my firm choice. So the message of this video is you shouldn't take a gap year unless you're very serious about it. I'll briefly go through each reason for taking a gap year one by one. And the first thing I want to touch upon is if you're taking gap year for a financial reason. So let's say you are having some sort of financial trouble or college fees are just too high. So let's say you did a gap year because you want to get a temporary job to earn some income so that you could afford the college fee. I personally feel that not a lot of people took gap year for this reason, but it is still quite possible. So I want to talk about this first. If that's the case, then just go ahead. If you can't afford college, maybe you could get a loan and probably would have been worth it. But let's say if it's not available for you, so let's say you could not get loans, you cannot get scholarship, then perhaps if you could settle for a job that is reasonably paying, then just go ahead. Like work on the job for a couple of months and reapply to the universities that you want. So that's possible, but this is not the main reason that I want to talk about today. I think I want to focus this video on those who want to reapply to universities. So if that's you, maybe it is worth thinking about why you are taking the gap year. Do you believe that if you reapply, you could get into a better university? If you think so, let me ask you a question. If you have graduated from your sixth form, you wouldn't be studying anymore, at least in a group setting as you would in a college. So what happens if you are away from that kind of academic environment is that your academic capabilities decline over the gap year period. So initially you might not feel it, but after a few months of you stop studying, you sort of forget what you learned in college. And that's because to really study well, you need to get academic environment where you could keep up the pace. That's very important because whatever you don't use, you lose it. And it's the same thing with all subjects, regardless of whether it's mathematics or economics or biology or other subjects. You need to keep up the pace or else you'll start forgetting things. So the consequence of you losing the academic vigor is that you are going to feel quite helpless whenever you start to see some more difficult admission test questions. And you might even perform worse than those students who are currently studying in college, even though they are 1 year younger than you. And you might beat yourself for it. So you might think, wait, I'm 1 year older than them. So what's wrong? I should be more academically capable than those students because I've been through their situation. I've completed my 2 years of study at college. I should be able to do these maths questions better than them. But that's not always the case because once you leave college, you leave the academically competitive environment. So that's something that you want to consider if you're thinking about taking a gap year. How do you recreate that environment? How do you keep yourself on the edge so that you could refresh your memory of certain topics? So that's a very important thing to do. Or you might not perform well at your admissions test. So that's the first thing you might want to consider. The second thing is you might not feel it at the start when you initially wanted to take a gap year. But let's say you're half year in or you're 3 months in and you realize, wait, this gap year is longer than I thought. It feels so long to me. So I'm 19 this year. If you're like me, you share the same circumstances or you're just doing the same syllabus as me. So you graduated from college at the age of 18. And if you take a gap year, you are going to be 19 when you first join university. And you need to make sure that your gap year is worth it, or else you're going to be 1 year behind. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You might be more emotionally and mentally mature than if you would be if you just jump right into university right after college. But the chief message is you need to make sure that your gap year is worth taking. It is good to have some sort of backup plan. Let's say you are taking a gap year to reapply to universities, so maybe Cambridge. So if you get the Cambridge offer, then fine, then your gap year would be worth it because that's the thing you set out to achieve in your gap year. But what if that's not the case? What if you took the entire year off and you failed to attain the Cambridge offer? So what do you do next? Cry about it? Obviously not, but it could feel quite depressing at times when you start to think back at your initial motivation to realize, wait, I set out to achieve this, this, and this. So these are the goals that you want to achieve. But sometimes it is out of your control. So you might have the best grade and you did very well at your admission test, but you couldn't possibly predict your performance at the interview. Universities can reject you for many reasons. They can also accept you for many reasons. So sometimes there is a luck element, something that you could not predict. It's better if you provide for that unpredictability so that you will not feel lost. And it also goes back to my first point, which is you losing your sharpness in your intellectual strength, because it is really about the environment. I think it's beneficial if you have a full schedule, so you plan out your gap year very well. So in the 12 months of your gap year, you want to spend 4 months doing internships, and you want to spend another 4 months doing university admissions related stuff, and another 4 months doing some other things like starting a business or whatever that you might want to do. It's better for you to have that. But the worst thing you could do is just, right, I don't care about schedule, I don't care about plan. I have only one plan, which is to get into Cambridge, and therefore I'm taking the gap year. Then if in the end you do not get the offer, you're going to feel very lost. Like, what am I supposed to do now? Just rest or do nothing? So that's worth pondering upon as well. So now the third reason, some people just want to take a gap year for the fun. They might think they needed a break. They are going to have vacation, go into the mountains or to the seaside and enjoy their year off before they go to universities. That's totally your choice. That's your personal choice. I'm not here to interfere in what you think is the best for you. If you really needed a break, then just do it. If you don't have financial concerns, you could afford to have a year off and to enjoy your life during that period. But for the ordinary students, I don't think it is advisable to take a year off without a very good reason. Whenever you take a year off, it reduces your academic competitiveness. I hope you realize that at this point, after my minutes of talking. If you're a gap year student, you reapply to universities, and once you get there, and if during the gap year you haven't really touched any books at all, then you're going to struggle and have worse transition than your counterpart who hasn't done the gap year, but just proceed directly from college to university. They could handle it better naturally because they haven't been away from books for so long. But you did. You have a year of doing internships and whatnot. So that's going to be different. So again, it pays to have a plan for how you should spend your time during the year. For me, I decided to take another A-level subject, which is history. I got the highest mark in the world for that subject. So I'm very fortunate to be able to get that award. That was very new to me. But again, after the initial excitement period, you go back to reality and realize things haven't really changed. You're still the same you. So right now, I've considered many reasons why you would like to take a gap year and point out why it wouldn't be advisable. Obviously, there are still many other reasons which I might not be able to think of at this point. For example, if you're too young to attend universities, or you don't feel secure or confident that you could handle the weight of university at such young an age, that could be a reason you take gap year as well. I wouldn't say that you shouldn't take gap year regardless of your personal circumstances, but if you are thinking of taking a gap year to reapply to universities, have a plan of how you're going to spend your time. And it's best if you still constantly refresh your memory of certain topics in mathematics or other subjects that might be useful if you go on to university studies. That process might be painful. You might not be motivated enough to do so, but it does pay. So really recommend you to do that. If you did not achieve what you set out to do before you took the gap year, so let's say you wanted to attend Cambridge, but you still couldn't get an offer in your gap year, do not feel beaten, do not feel depressed. Everything will work out in the end. Sometimes it's just fate. There are things you can't control, but whatever you can control, just try to achieve the best that you could. That's the crux of the matter, really. So that's all I have to say. If you find this video helpful or interesting at least, I would really appreciate if you could like the video and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. We'll see you in the next video. Bye!